Jake the analyst claimed that by using a combination of thousands of data points and artificial intelligence, he could accurately predict the likelihood for each game to be named Game of the Year. What was arguably more interesting than the results themselves were the findings for what makes a Game of the Year nominee. For starters, it appears that a disproportionate amount of platform exclusives go on to be nominated for the top spot. Perhaps not all unsurprising, when they are specifically designed to be console sellers. In terms of open world versus a linear format, this was nearly a 50-50 split for Game of the Year nominees, which seems to indicate that it has very little bearing. Gameplay perspective, on the other hand, sees many more third-person experiences getting nominated for Game of the Year. With this being said, when we look at all games we measured, the player's perspective appears to have no bearing on a title's Game of the Year ambitions. Story, on the other hand, seemed to be a significant factor for a game to be nominated, which shouldn't be too surprising when considering past winners. To round off our pie charts, we have what is perhaps the best piece of data gathered, as the introduction of loot boxes seems to almost entirely prohibit a game from winning Game of the Year from any publication. We can finally give video game journalists credit where it's deserved. Our AIs tended to find that games that had a Metacritic score between an 83 and 85 and did not have online co-op would very often get nominated for Game of the Year, as well as games that received a critic score of at least a 92. Additionally, games with a score between 90 and 92 with some form of online PvE were almost guaranteed to receive a nomination. In terms of length, it appears as if a casual completion time of between 27 and 42.5 hours seems to be the sweet spot for nominations. Finally, games with a high number of user reviews, in tandem with being both gameplay and story driven, were very likely to be nominated. As for game genres, it appears as if ambitious developers should be targeting the action-adventure shooter RPG market, as all three of these categories appear to dominate in terms of sheer nominations. Moving on, we can see that for the most part, there are three general clusters of game length that we were able to measure, the majority of which are anywhere between 0 and 15 hours long. With this in mind, almost all of these games received no more than 3 or 4 nominations in their year, which could prove that longer games generally receive more nominations. Finally, when it comes to user ratings, games usually had very similar scores compared with what was given by critics, although notable exceptions include The Last of Us 2, which appears to be much more divisive among general audiences, and Overwatch, which is a live service game, tended to receive lower scores the longer the title was out. Another interesting observation is that although most years saw Game of the Year come down to 1 or 2 standout titles, it's not uncommon for more wildcard picks to take the top spot for some outlets. Although the 2021 winners were particularly fragmented, predicting Game of the Year is a long and uncertain undertaking. With this in mind, viewers are free to make fun of us in the comments if we turn out to be entirely and irredeemably wrong.
What if it's me looking down on me? The world above must also be. This could go on for infinity.